Good morning, Accelerated Leadership folks. I am excited to present you with a particular skill that we will actually be talking about and using in our meeting on Tuesday, and that is a key diversity skill. Think of it as like a foundational skill for diversity called tracking, Tracking. Tracking is very simply the skill of observing a pattern by group identity and sharing it. So let's just unpack what that means. A few months ago, I was at the airport and I was actually practicing my tracking skills. So one of the things that I try to do, and I'm not very good at yet, is I'm always trying to practice my tracking wherever I go. So at the airport, I actually noticed, I was in Washington Dulles Airport, and I noticed that everybody behind a counter was dark skinned, and dark as in like darker than me skinned, and everybody who was a customer were actually light skinned. So now I had all these interpretations. Is there an immigration issue? Is there a justice issue? Is there something in the economics of DC? I had all these interpretations, but the interpretations that I was trying on for size came before that came this fact establishment. And the fact establishment was that I observed that everyone behind the counter was actually dark-skinned and everybody that was a customer was light-skinned. So I tracked it. Now, a lot of people of color in InterVarsity will say that we track automatically. We always notice those kinds of things. And that's fairly true, that women, people of color will tend to track, but they will tend to track on the categories that matter to them the most. If we are to be good diversity and inclusion leaders and practitioners, then it's super important that we track in multiple categories. So, for example, how many people are walking around you that are able? How many people that are walking with you that are young? What do you notice when you're in a particular room according to gender, ethnicity, nationality, or even hidden diversities that you may know about, but other people in the group may not know about regarding sexuality, right? So one of the things to pay attention to is to track constantly. Another example is, for example, and it doesn't have to be like a profound observation. It actually sometimes needs to be super simple. I was tracking in a meeting that there were two men of color in InterVarsity in that room, and both men of color were wearing sports coats and dressed nicely. All the other men that were white were actually dressed casually. Now, there are a ton of interpretations around that, right? But I was tracking that. The other thing I was tracking in that room was there was two single people in that room, one single woman, one single man, and everybody else was married. Another person tracked like, oh, 50% of this room is West Coast InterVarsity. The other 50% is not. So there are tracks that you have to do constantly. If you're going to lead a diverse room or be an inclusive trainer, you have to constantly practice tracking. So a few tips that I would say is be specific about the behavior that you see. Don't rush to interpretation or judging, and observe patterns. And you have to always keep it at the group level. You can't say, I tracked one individual. You have to say, I tracked this one individual who is Black. So you have to talk about it at the group level. Lots of things you can think about is who makes eye contact, who speaks first, who's behind the counter, who initiates discussions, who's on the outside and not called upon. You should track your dinner table. Like what happens at your dinner table, you should practice tracking constantly. So here's what I'm inviting you to do. I'm just inviting you as homework before our training to track the rest of the weekend. Track when you're at church. Track when you're going to the grocery store this weekend. Track your family dinner table. Track your small group ministry that you're involved in. Track when you're driving, right? And so I'd like each of you to come into the meeting on Tuesday with 5 tracks, right? So 5 tracks that you come with it written down. You don't have to submit to me, but we'll go around and we'll actually share about the skill of tracking. So I wanted to keep this video to 5 minutes, and so here's the 5-minute video on the skill of tracking. Hope that was super helpful to you, and I look forward to talking with you on Tuesday about designing, delivering inclusive training, and holding inclusive rooms. God bless. Take care.